Ancestry.com 2026 tip number 2, the Census Comparison Tool. I like to use the Census Comparison Tool when I'm working with a challenging name. Maybe an immigrant came over where their name spellings are very different. Or a lot of times, if a woman has remarried many times, then she has different names associated with her in the census records. The Census Comparison Tool is a really good way to look and see what's accurate and what's not. So to get to it, I'm going to come up to one of my ancestors, Robert Lee Parker Amos, and I'm going to click on the hints. What's going to appear are the normal hints that you get from Ancestry. So I see that there's a 1940 census that I need to add to his profile. If I come to below the review and ignore buttons, there's a link that says compare to other census hints. I'm going to click on that. And then what happens is a table shows. If you notice 1940, this is the one that I need to add. It says review, but the 1930, 1920, 1910, 1900 all are grayed out with save. So those I've already saved. I've got a table here that shows me his name and different spellings along the way, different birth dates. He does seem consistent in his birth location, and his residence has stayed the same. As I scroll down, I can see the spouse name, the household. Now, keep in mind that the household will be children once he's married and older, but it could also be his siblings and his parents, depending on his age. As we see that he's married in the 1900 census, so these are probably his children. And you want to research this before you get to this point. This is just comparing the data. So if I click on the next button up top, I see I had one more census that wasn't showing, 1880. This is where it gets a little interesting. So his name is Robert Lee Parker in the census in 1880. And if you notice, he's not married. And Sarah, George, and Mary are in his household. Well, Sarah is his mother, and George and Mary are his siblings. I know this because I've already researched this. But what is interesting is the name. So Robert Lee Parker, and then in the 1900, he switches to Lee, 1910, and then I have a really different spelling for 1920. I just want to point out that when census takers went to homes to take the information and document everybody that was in the home, they weren't given a birth certificate. They weren't given an official document. They sat down with somebody and they talked to them. They sat down in their living room or on their front porch and said, "Hi, I'm here to take the census records for the United States. And could you tell me your name?" And when they would give the name, the census taker would write down what they heard. So, depending on accents, especially different locations, or if immigrants came over, if there is a really, really long name, then a census taker didn't always ask for the name to be spelled. They just wrote it down the way that they heard it. So, this is probably what happened with my ancestor. And so, Amos became Amos. It's just a variation, but it looks pretty similar. The same people are in the household. This is where you might want to go and correct the name in the census to make sure that it says Amos, but it's pretty documented that these are his relatives and this is his census. If you notice, some nicknames are also in there. So instead of Floda, we have Florley. This was a nickname. You'll see the information like that, but the information, it seems to be consistent. What is kind of interesting, this Robert Lee Parker and Lee, how did I come to that conclusion that 1880 census should be on the 1900 census? I will tell you a lot of research, a lot of family stories, and a lot of going and looking at actual documents, which the census takers do not do. They sit down and they ask for the information. So this is how you use the census comparison tool. If you feel like this 1940 census belongs, click review. And what will happen is the normal screen will come up where you can review the information and say, yes, you'd like to save this to your tree to this person. And you go through the family and save it to the tree. It's that easy. And the census comparison tool is a really great option for those that have immigrants, women who have married quite often, or you have different name changes or different migration routes. This is a really interesting way to also look at the migration routes. Pretty cool. See you next time.